When it comes to Hooligan Development, software development principles that we follow and methodologies, we follow quite a few, and we normally keep ahead of the curve on this, and we tend to go with things that work and generally that are adopted by the client as well, because sometimes you can't, as a development service, necessarily dictate any sort of principles or methodologies, because that's quite a big undertaking for a large organization potentially to go ahead and change. So we've got a very agnostic approach. However, we do follow very, very good software development principles, keeping things dry, for example, solid development practices, well-architectured design, domain-driven development, test-driven development. So those are all the principles that we abide by, and obviously following an agile approach to things. Really writing good code is ingrained in the principles that Hooligan has adopted. When it comes to applying those certain methodologies, it's really dependent on the client and what they have in terms of their principles. Again, not every company is exactly the same. Hooligan tries to understand in a broader aspect what these methodologies might be best suited for, and we can guide clients on new ways of framing teams, etc. But it's really down to the client, and we tend to pride ourselves on how we connect with our client, their teams, and really support them in their choices of their principles, and just abide by that and try and fit in as best as possible. And we kind of look at it as an incubation process where we get ingrained in your methodologies, and then if the opportunity arises where we can maybe make a better contribution to those, we'll most certainly do so. The satisfaction in your software products is paramount. So a lot of the times development companies aren't necessarily focused too much on the user, but more on the solution at hand. So they don't necessarily put their heads in the space of a user. And we often tell our developers that when you're coding, don't try and code for the latest, greatest technology and buzzword. Really look at it as if you were going to be the end user and code around that. So making sure that when a user clicks a button, for example, there's a little loader in there, so that they're aware that something's happening. Doing little micro things like that really make a big difference. Hooligan Development has found in a lot of instances clients don't necessarily understand where they're going. They have an idea, a broader idea, but not necessarily how to achieve that and how to break it out into smaller bits of verticals inside that product. So what Hooligan has got is a lot of experience in terms of breaking down the requirement down to smaller bite-sized chunks. In other words, eating an elephant one bite at a time. We really take that particular approach and understand what's the critical path that is required to achieve a viable product. What we do is that we look at the whole requirement and look at what's important and design a product from all the ideas and come up with sort of your minimal viable product. And from that basis, we can then help with formulating the correct purpose-built team to achieve that first iteration of your dream product. Going from there, we will obviously find different avenues that we can take, different ways in which we can experiment with your product and offer it to the user. But at the end of the day, throughout the journey, you must have step by step a viable product that works and can be tested with the users.